Yeah.
Like, so there's one video I was watching where these people, they're talking about how, well, they're talking about the oatmeal, like the one with the guy with the funny hat on it, with like the pilgrim hat. Yeah,
Oh, the Quaker Oats guy. Yeah.
So anyways, the Quaker Oats European version has like 5 or 6 ingredients. But the
Okay.
US version has like 16. And some of it's like they make it last longer with more preservatives and stuff like that. It's like one of those things where it's like, I don't think that this should have like 16 ingredients.
Right. For Quaker Oats. Should have Quaker Oats and maybe like some flavors in it, but not that much crap.
And this is kind of like wild to think about. That that's what you basically get. Another one, it's like kind of like the hamburger thing, where the one that like that's on display at some museum in Europe because it's like still looks pretty pristine.
Yeah, well, I think the reason you can have a lot healthier food in Europe is that they have laws against what you can put in food. They have strong opinions on the level of chemicals and the type of chemicals that can be in food. And at the end of the day, everyone wants healthy food. Like, everyone wants abundant food and healthy food. No one wants to eat food that's going to make them ill or sick. Yeah, they want it to taste good, but everyone would like both at the same time. Good taste and healthy ingredients inside of it. And I don't think those two things have to be mutually exclusive. You can make good tasting food and make it in a healthy way. And I tried this restaurant recently called Halal Bros, and it's just really good fresh food. And it only has like 4 or 5 ingredients in it. They have like rice and then meats, like 2 or 3 types of veggies, and then like some sauce on it. And it's so good. And it doesn't taste like, if you go to some other places where you can get rice bowls, there's just so many flavors in it. Sometimes even with like Chipotle. Chipotle is healthy food, but they just have so much stuff in it. And I think that, I think in America, we've become accustomed to needing to have so many different flavors when we order a dish. But I really like just simple, flavorful, healthy food. And I think a lot of other countries, that's the norm.
Yeah, like with Chipotle, it's like their stuff is good.
Yeah, it's very good. And Chipotle, don't get me wrong, they're probably one of the better fast food restaurants that you can eat at these days. Because it's still like whole foods. And what I mean by that is that it's not a bunch of crazy ingredients that are processed to make kind of like a fake food.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, it's like meat, veggies, rice, that type of stuff. And they have different condiments, but it's all generally pretty healthy and organic and whatnot. But I think still a lot of people have gone away from just the taste of natural, healthy, simple food, and they want it to taste like this kind of artificial way, or this kind of super, super tasty.
That's kind of a weird way of thinking about it.
Right, and to me,
the fake taste, you crave the fake taste.
Yeah, like, have you ever had Kraft mac and cheese? Like, there's an example. Like, Kraft mac and cheese, like, that's not a whole food in any way, shape, or form. Like, it's been... So, first of all, grains...
It has it all. It's pastry and it's cheese. What more can you ask? It's a balanced diet.
Well, I mean, it does have some okay macros in it, I suppose. Like, they inflate, like, what would naturally be in that food. So, at the end of the day... Macaroni is made from grains, right? And so you're already processing it, and you're turning it into enriched white flour, basically, to make the noodles. And so when you're doing that, you're taking away a ton of the nutrients, and you're just taking out like the carb part of it, the simple sugar, the simple carbohydrate of it. And so it's processed from the get-go. But then they put in this fake cheese. There's probably some real cheese in it, but they have so many preservatives and additional flavors that have been engineered in labs to make it taste super cheesy. Like, the box says it's the cheesiest, right? but like, that flavor is not natural cheese, It's enhanced, and it's so many chemicals in it to make it taste that way and look that way.
They should put that on Skittles and stuff, the sugariest.
Oh, yeah. A lot of food manufacturers want to make their food seem healthier than it is because they want to have it both ways. They want
they want to have the bad and the good.
They want people to think it's healthy and really just like think it's healthy enough to where they can keep eating it and not feel they need to make a change, because as a food manufacturer, you want people to keep eating your food, right? So there's a weird kind of, conflict of interest where food manufacturers, a lot of them, unfortunately, are more interested in getting people addicted to their food than they are making a high-quality, nutritious food.
Well, that was like that one documentary I was telling you about with Fed Up, where like when they advertise like this is low in fat, and what turns out what they do is they just, yes, it's lower in fat than it was before, but then they make up for it in sugar.
Right.
It's like, it's so weird to think that they can almost like when you have that create a character thing in some RPG where you have the sliders where you make your head bigger or your hair longer.
Yeah.
They're doing the same thing except with the food, where they're just like moving the stats over. Oh yeah, 20% more fat or 20% less, or then 20% or 80% more sugar. And it's just weird to think that they can just slide it like that. But with that Fed Up documentary, that was kind of like how basically it was talking about how a lot of different things have a lot more added sugar than what they should have.
Yeah. So I saw that, and they kind of do it both ways. Like they try to take out things that consumers will perceive as unhealthy and add in things that consumers may perceive as healthy. So they try to take out sugar or take out fat, which can be a good thing. Fat, less so. Fat is a necessary macronutrient. Sugar is not. You can go your life without eating added sugar, and you'll be totally fine. You'll be healthier.
Yeah.
But you can't go your whole life without eating fat. Like, fat is a macronutrient, and so there's 3 macronutrients: fat, protein, and carbohydrates. And they all do different things in the body, and they're all necessary for a healthy, functioning body. But a lot of the times what these food companies are doing is they're adding in things that aren't really making it that much healthier, but they're trying to make the consumer think it's much healthier. So you see this a lot with whole grains. Like,
I see that a lot with the whole non-GMO, or like all like it's like this is the green truth or some full organic ingredients or something like that.
Right. And so organic is on the whole healthier than eating fruits or vegetables or meat that's been pumped with a lot of different chemicals and whatnot. But like organic fried chicken is still fried chicken, So,
yeah, it's still deep fried with all these oils, so that all that stuff is in that breading, and then you still have all that carb-loaded breading.
And so they add that label of organic to get the consumer to feel that it's healthy enough that, yeah, I'll eat that. It's fine. I can keep eating that all the time. And what I see a lot is with whole grain. And so, going back to one of the macronutrients, carbohydrates, carbs are an important part of a diet because they provide you with energy. But in excess, when you have too many carbs, then that energy gets stored as fat in the body. And so, whole grains are good, but does it mean you can now eat all the carbs you want?
Well, it's kind of like the diet soda thing. It's like, oh, this doesn't have 150 calories. Well, I'm not consuming 150 calories anymore. That means I can eat twice that amount or triple that amount because my soda is diet now.
Yeah. And so, there are, different... Nutrition is not a simple subject. Like, nutrition, honestly, is a complex thing. And there are people that can be healthy on some diets, and people that may not be able to be healthy on that diet. That's because the body, is a complicated thing, and some people's bodies respond differently. But at the end of the day, you do have to follow, general macronutrients and general calorie count to have a healthy ability to process, a balanced diet, and be able to process these foods and have it not affect your health. And just by adding in fiber, you're not making that pizza healthy, just because, or Kraft mac and cheese, they always promote their fiber. Well, it was at one point in time categorized as a serving of vegetables to have like a slice of pizza, right? And so that's
pizza
pretty
and you
sad.
get your serving of vegetables.
So you can eat pizza every now and then, and it does include tomato sauce, but you're missing out on a lot of the benefits of eating an actual vegetable, like a piece of broccoli, or a carrot or something like that. Because when you eat that food, one, it's filling you up and it's not giving you a lot of calories. And two, it actually does have fiber, and not like this added refined fiber that's just been crammed in there to make it look healthy. So it does help your digestive system. And probably the most important with fruits and vegetables, you're just getting really good micronutrients. So you need your carbs, fats, and protein, your macros, but micronutrients like your vitamins and different, different nutrients that the body needs to function even better than just being able to survive. You get so many of those by having a balanced diet and eating your fruits and vegetables. And I think what's misleading about like the serving of vegetable or serving of fruit is that if you get it from these like processed foods, you're not eating as healthy compared to if you just ate an apple or you ate a carrot.
That was like one of my friends. He put it really well when it came to the whole apple juice scenario thing. Oh, how do you say like five? Like, would you eat 5 apples or 6 apples?
Oh yeah.
Like, no, like why would? But then that's like what you're having with it, like a glass of apple juice or orange juice, because it's almost like you lose all that fiber and stuff, and
yeah,
you're just drinking all the sugar.
Exactly. And so, it kind of comes back to processed foods. I think processing foods makes them more shelf stable, and it allows you to add in these different ingredients, which might make them a little bit healthier. But a lot of the time, when they're processing a food like an apple to make it into apple juice, they're mostly taking out the healthy parts about it and only preserving the unhealthy parts, like the sugary juice. So processing could be, a good thing, but it's been more and more turned into how do we make it last longer so we don't have to make as many, and we can sell them at a lower price. How do we make it taste better so we can get more people addicted to it? And so that's where I don't like, processed foods. But processing is potentially a good thing because it does lead to abundance.
Extreme thing, because it's like, you shouldn't have unless you're pickling it or you're drying it, kind of like beef jerky. So beef jerky, you have a meat, and then you can flavor it if you want, but basically you dehydrate it to knock out all the moisture and stuff, and then you have this piece of meat that's dry as a bone, but it lasts a really long time. Like you can have it months on months without refrigeration. But with that, you're knocking out all the moisture. But then it's kind of weirder though. Like I guess I'm thinking about bacon, and like with bacon, it's like you can have a piece of bacon be in the fridge for months. Think about it, it's like, it's like that's probably not too good to have like a piece of meat that lasts months, or like bread even. Like that sourdough bread that I get from Target. The best example is just the shelf life. Like I'll go there, and I gotta hit the place up at a certain time, because if I don't, they're gonna have bread that's like gonna expire like the next day. But if I get it at the right time, then it's gonna expire in like 2 days. I mean, still not the best thing I want to deal with, but it's like I'd rather deal with that kind of like pain than have a bread that lasts like 30 years.
So you bring up a good point, which is that preserving food has been a tradition for a long time across many different cultures, right? Most cultures have had some type of like pickling or fermenting preservation method, and so that's a healthier way to do it than putting a bunch of different chemicals in it, and it still makes it shelf stable, and in some cases it makes it preserved for a longer time than putting in chemicals. Like white bread is not preserved through pickling or fermenting. It's just got a lot of like stabilizers in it, chemicals that are put in it to make it last like 2 to 3 weeks. But if you were to pickle some meat or like you said, make some jerky out of it, that'll last long time, or you could can it. And so people have been doing that for a long time. So again, processing in and of itself is not a bad thing, and it can be a good thing. But in the large scale, factory food production that we see today, it's more so a bad thing, because it's putting in a lot of chemicals that it it's taking out the good part of the food. It's no longer a whole food. And it's usually taking out the bad part of it and injecting more chemicals into it to make it more shelf stable.
No, I totally agree with that, because it's like you can have these chips or crackers that last months on end, and it's like, I guess I'm thinking about, okay, it's got knocked down. Anyways, I'm just thinking about like when I made bread, like homemade bread, and I was like, that stuff didn't last long. I had to eat that pretty fast. And
Yeah.
then you have like this bread that you get from the store, and it's like, you know, like I was saying earlier, it's just like, it's a lot longer. But that was like with the canning thing. I remember there was this one story I saw, it was a little while ago, it was a can of food that was found, and it was like, it dated back to like the Napoleon era. Like,
Oh, wow.
when he was doing his thing. Opened it and they ate it. It was still edible. Oh my lord. Anyways, I should have landed that one. But anyways, yeah, so it dated back to the Napoleon era. It was still edible, like the canned food. Like, yes, you can eat it, but the nutrition factor decreases over time. So
Well, sure.
and,
Yeah.
Yeah, so then, like, whereas maybe if you ate it around, like, a couple months after when it first canned, you probably would have more of that nutrition, but, you know, this was over 100 years ago, easy, and then it's like, you're not getting anything from that, hardly. But you're still able to eat it.
Yeah, I think there's different things to consider about nutrition. Like, generally speaking, there's macronutrients and micronutrients, and like your body needs macronutrients to function, and it needs micronutrients to function more efficiently and be more healthy. And so there's probably still some protein in that, like, 1,000-year-old meat or however old it was that you were talking about. But it probably did lose a lot of micronutrients. And what I've started to learn about recently is that the way that you cook food or that you store food can actually change the amount of micronutrients in it, vitamins.
Really?
Yeah. And so, for example...
So, like, okay, like, so like plastic versus glass type of thing?
Well, I guess you could make that comparison. Like, they say that when you drink from plastic, you know, you're absorbing some microparticles and whatnot.
Plastics.
Right. But generally speaking, when you cook food, so when you cook food in different ways, some ways are better than others at preserving the micronutrients, the vitamins within it. And so frying food, you're not just adding in oil, but it's also super hot. And I believe it's killing a lot of the nutrients within the food, the micronutrients. Does that mean you want to eat all raw food? No, certainly not.
You don't want to eat it like a vulture or something, or like like a tiger catching the gazelle, or a lion catching the gazelle.
Right. So cooking food is still an important thing, but the method that you cook it can preserve more micronutrients, and not even just cooking, but freezing. So if you go to the supermarket and you buy frozen vegetables, a lot of the micronutrients have been killed because it's been frozen. Whereas if you were to eat the unfrozen, just raw vegetables, then you would be getting a lot more micronutrients. When it comes to the cooking part of it, though, if you were to steam your food instead of deep fat fry it, not only would you be having 0 added calories from your cooking method, but you would be keeping a lot of those micronutrients. So it's not as simple as just what you're eating. It's also important to consider how you
store and cook it.
Right. The thing about food, though, is that we're still learning about the nutritional contents of food and what's healthy or what's not healthy. It's an ongoing process. And so there are these different, like, you know, periods of time where people think something's healthy, and then later on maybe they'll say it's not healthy.
What was that one, the Atkins diet?
Yeah, Atkins, for example. So the Atkins diet, my understanding of it is that it's a very low-carb diet, and you see a lot of
keto.
Yeah, so it was like the early form of it was like keto before keto was popular, right? And so I personally have tried the keto diet, and I found that it was not something I could sustain for the long term, because I just didn't feel very good on it. immediately in the first week when I was doing it, I, had headaches and I had very low energy. Yeah, absolutely, because my body was now no longer able to use carbohydrates to provide energy for me, and it had to adapt to essentially flushing out all the carbs in my body and then producing ketones from eating a lot of fats and drawing on fats in the body to now produce the energy that I need, instead of getting the energy from glucose that was derived from carbohydrates that I would eat. And so that takes several days for your body to basically adapt how it's taking energy from your food and supplying that energy for you. And in those couple days, you feel like crap. You have a headache.
Thanks.
People have, different
Thanks
like
for that.
digestion problems. So keto is like, honestly, I think keto is kind of like a bit of an extreme diet.
I hate
and
it doing the 25 carbs thing, man. Like, that was my balance, like 25 grams of carbs. That's hard to do. Like, you're almost like eating almost exclusively just meat or vegetables.
Right. Each person is different, though. And keto originally, it wasn't just like some like popular way to lose weight originally. It came from a researcher who was helping kids to basically treat the seizures that they had. And the ketogenic diet, yeah, absolutely. Keto was originally invented as like a diet. These kids would start to eat a ketogenic diet, and they would have way less seizures. And I'm not quite as familiar with like chemistry of that.
It was to help kids not have. So what was causing it for them not to have the seizures?
I don't recall. And I don't want to say like the wrong medical information, but I know that it originally was researched and recommended.
You're not a doctor. You're not going to lose your license, man.
A diet for that purpose. So it would be interesting to look up. But a lot of other people have just kind of adapted it, become popular because, hey, a lot of people like to eat bacon and cheese and sausage, and now you can do that and lose weight. But again, does it come back to a healthy diet? It depends. But remember, health and nutrition are complex things. It's not a one-size-fits-all. And generally speaking, when you take out a very important macronutrient like carbs, your body's going to have some changes. And they may be good, they may be bad changes. But it's not what the body is used to. And so you really have to be careful when you're making drastic changes like that.
Yeah, no crap. But I just didn't know it had the whole no seizure thing for kids. That's really crazy. I guess it's like, I just never really look into the whole thing, like where the origins of the diet is. I just knew about the Atkins because like my grandparents did it for a while and they hated it. And I think my dad did it for a minute too and he hated it as well. But, because I think they're saying they didn't lose it. And then one of my exes, her dad did the Atkins and he was pissed because he's like saying, I'm always hungry, I'm not losing any weight. And it's kind of crazy just hearing like the origins of some of these things.
Yeah. So I think what keto gets right is that it does help a lot of people to reduce their carbs. And if you get into keto as like a diet community, there's different types of keto. Like you can do strict keto where it's like 25 carbs a day max, like you were saying. And then there's people that do like net carb keto, which is this idea that as long as you eat carbs which are rich in fiber, the grams of fiber are subtracted out of the grams of carbs, and so that's your net carbs that you're actually eating. And I think the idea behind that is that like when you eat more fiber, your body doesn't actually absorb the same insulin or carbs that it does if you were to eat less fiber. So there's like different research you can read up on that. But at the end of the day, like it's good that people in the keto community are recognizing that carbs are kind of the main source of excess weight and a lot of health problems that a lot of people have these days. And so reducing carbs is certainly important, or just not overeating carbs. Eat the amount of carbs that are necessary. Well, you can if you want to, but just don't do it every day or with every meal. And that's the problem, is that like carbs are seen as the main side or the main dish. It's in every meal, and it's in excess a lot of the time. So it goes back, in my opinion, to macronutrients. Have a balanced meal with balanced amounts of macronutrients, and try to get as many micronutrients as you can, because that's just going to make you even healthier.
I know, like when it came to the fat side of things, like I kind of got addicted to it. So one of the things I would do is I would get like bacon and eggs, and what I would do is I'd collect the bacon grease. Well, okay, I'd usually take like 3 strips and I'd cook it, and when I had the grease, I wouldn't throw that away. I would just leave that in the pan, then I would cook my eggs in that. So then my eggs got all that nice bacon grease on it. And to kind of like go on that a little bit further, like I felt a lot more full. Like I felt full. Okay, so like the best example I give was, so when I had like brisket, the brisket has a lot of fat in it. And like I could have this like 5 ounces of brisket and I'll feel like pretty good, like I'm stuffed. But then if I have like 5 ounces of chicken, I'll still maybe be hungry a little bit later. But then I found out if I cooked it a little, like put a little bit of fat on it, like just like maybe just a little bit of olive oil or something, it made me feel a little bit better. Like I wouldn't feel full later. I mean, hungry later.
Yeah. Well, so fat is very satiating. It fills you up. Not quite as much as protein, and it does provide more calories than protein, so you have to be careful with adding in fats. But fat is very helpful for the body and the brain. Also, fats help your brain to function. And in terms of calories, like the reason we need to eat 2,000 calories a day, roughly, a lot of those calories go to the brain. The brain takes up the most calories to function of any organ in the body, because it's doing so much, and it's always on. A lot of organs are always on, like your heart, right?
But the brain, oh my god! But the brain is much more so.
The brain is performing so many complex actions, and so the heart does like one thing repeatedly, right?
Yeah.
And so, like from a metabolism perspective, it's kind of more predictable. It doesn't require as many calories, but the brain is like processing information, storing information, directing literally every other part of the body, telling it what it should do. It's sensing stimuli and responding to stimuli. You know, there's so many parts that researchers are still studying about the brain, but yeah, like you can look it up, but it's some crazy amount of your total calories just goes keeping your brain running. And fats are helpful for your brain, for a healthy brain. So this is why I personally don't recommend cutting out any of the 3 macronutrients entirely. I think, you might up some or lower some depending on your health and fitness goals, but all 3 of them are important to different aspects of a healthy body.
That's like something like kind of like going to that whole fat side thing, or like the brain. That was like when I was looking up the whole brain stuff. I remember seeing this one thing where, okay, so the amount of energy your brain takes is like almost like equivalent to a light bulb, like lighting up. And at first it doesn't sound like that impressive, but then when you think about how the name of the game when it comes to how a body functions is like doing something in an environment using as little energy as possible.
Right.
It's like if your brain is like gets more and more efficient and uses less energy, then that's less food that you got to use to maintain that brain.
Right. Well, that's what the body always wants to do. The body wants to be efficient, and it is very efficient for all of the complex things that it does. But you need to fuel your body for it to work properly, And there are some people that have different needs and they need to fuel differently. But on the whole, you're kind of still looking at the same 3 macronutrients that every person needs to function well. And so it's important to kind of look at your food as like, yeah, I want it to taste good, but I also, it's putting fuel in my body. If I want my body to work well, and even my mind, because we were just talking about how many calories it uses, you need to fuel it well.
Yeah, you can't be running on like low to no food. It makes me think of those like some of those people that they barely eat anything and just like so they can lose weight, but it's like you're kind of like cutting yourself on both sides, because if you go into starvation mode, then your body starts to eat the muscle first, and then uses the fat last.
Yeah, well, that's a good point, but there are kind of like, I feel like a lot of the time what these like short-term diets are trying to do is trying to hack the system, the metabolic system. And so in the long term, it's healthier just to have a balanced diet with balanced macros, in my opinion. But there are certain things you can add in to any diet to kind of amplify your results. And one of them that I think is a little bit healthier than trying to cut out different macros would be intermittent fasting. Because I've also done that.
Yeah, that's where you like wait like 8 hours or something like that.
Right. And so there's different types of intermittent fasting. I think the most popular one is probably like the 8-16, which basically says that like 16 hours a day you won't eat any food, you'll just drink water, and then during an 8-hour window you'll eat food. And to be honest, that's like not that big of a challenge to do, to just eat during 8 hours of a day. And so what you're doing then is you're basically limiting the amount of time that your body has this surplus of calories, and you're extending the amount of time that it has a deficit. And so it's just burning more calories during that deficit period. But intermittent fasting has a bunch of like health benefits, a bunch of research. It can be good for your skin. It can be good for, clearing different toxins in your body. Your body overall will kind of react differently when you have, some fasting periods. But it's a little bit healthier because it's getting you to be more intentional about when you're eating, instead of just eating all the time. Because a lot of the time people are eating when they're not really hungry.
Yeah,
they're
eating junk food and stuff like that.
Right. And I'm not like the perfect healthy eater out there. And there are times when I'll eat like a bag of Doritos because I just feel tired at the end of the day. But the more that you can be aware of why you're eating what you're eating, and when you're eating it, and try to make sure you're not just eating something because you're tired or something like that, you'll become healthier from that. And I think intermittent fasting, it teaches you some discipline that will be helpful for a healthy diet overall. So that you eat when you're hungry or when you need the fuel, not just because you're bored.
Yeah, just because just to eat, basically.
Right. And that's not an easy thing to do, because eating is a communal thing, and it's also an entertainment thing. You should enjoy eating, you definitely should. But it's just too easy to overeat when it's like for reasons other than, putting the food.
Burritos and stuff like that.
Yeah. Well, those things, actually, those are kind of like engineered to get you to eat a lot of them. And so they have this concept in food production. I think they talked about it in like a documentary. It was like Holy Chicken or something like that Adam Spurlock guy.
Oh, yeah, the one that he made the fast food restaurant.
Right. Yeah, so they have this concept in food industry called the bliss point. And so the bliss point, I believe it was like it's like the right balance of like sugars and salts and things like that to where you just want to keep eating, like you don't feel sick, but you want to keep eating something. And so if you're selling food, that's your goal really, is to get someone to keep eating more food. If that's what your profit goals are, just selling as many foods as possible. So chips are one of those things that have like really dialed in bliss point, because like it's basically just carbs and salt and flavor, and it doesn't fill your body up at all, but the taste of it is so good that you keep wanting to eat more and more and more.
Well,
and it's designed to be like that. It's not by mistake. It's by design.
Now, I will say there was an outlier. I had these, one thing, they were like protein crisps or something like that. They basically looked like cheese balls, but it was like, those things, you can eat a few of those, and those felt like pretty good. And it was really, something really good. Yeah. But, it was designed to be like that. It wasn't like it wasn't just like some like Doritos type thing or something like that. It's meant to fill you up.
Yeah.
Versus this other one where it's like it's meant to make you like plow through it like it's like it is nobody's business or something like that.
Yep, and that's healthier than a bag of Doritos because you're getting, arguably you're getting like a more important and healthy macronutrient because you might not be eating enough protein through your normal diet. If you eat protein chips, you'll get more protein. Carbs, you might be eating too many carbs, so it's better to swap out. For a lot of people, it's better to swap out Doritos with protein chips. But you still need to, be aware of what you're eating and why you're eating it, and not just eat stuff all the time. Eat it for the purpose that it's helping you with for your body,
Yeah, well, that was like on the Dorito side of things. I remember there was this one, I don't know if you guys have Sprouts over there, but there was this, this kind of goes with the price, and this kind of segues into the whole price and feeling full. So Sprouts has this one brand, it's not their brand of Doritos, but it's a brand of Doritos from a different company, and the price of it is like the same as a regular bag of Doritos, but it has like way less like fake ingredients inside it, and the taste of it is so good, and it actually feels like a real tortilla shell that they fried up. Kind of like when you you make your own homemade fried tortilla chips, and you just cut them up and just fry them in the pan. That's like like the texture wise was kind of like that, but yeah, it was like really good. I'm like thinking, dang, it's just like for like the same price, making me feel a little bit better, and then it's like kind of reminds me of like just doing it homemade. It's like I'm getting something like a better deal. Like it's like I don't know. It makes me think about when you're saying like we almost like program ourselves to have like, oh, this doesn't taste like regular Doritos, so I can't like it now.
Right.
So I have like all that highly processed nonsense.
Yeah, I think when you do like a little bit of a detox on the processed food, you can actually taste food and enjoy food more. Because if you eat Doritos, you're just kind of like bombarded with all these salts and sugars and artificial ingredients, and it tastes really good. Don't get me wrong. Like Doritos, they're awesome. They're probably one of my favorite chips. But are they a healthy chip? Not at all.
No, not at all. Like that's like also kind of like, I guess for me it kind of goes back to like some of those. I guess for me, I'm always like hunting for like the best taste of food, like something that's healthy and tasty at the same time. So when I found that, I'm just like, dang, this is like the same price as a bag of Dorito chips, and it tastes better because like I used to be like a Doritos connoisseur, like because I was eating those things like a fiend as a kid, and I forgot. I stopped eating them for a long time because they changed something with it. I think they started using some more concentrated cheese thing. It just tasted kind of off. And I stopped eating it, and every once in a while I'll crave it, but it's just like, it just sucks. It's like when they changed that flavor, so then when I found that thing at Sprouts, I was like, dang, this is good. It's like, it just kind of brought me back to the glory days where it's like, this actually tastes like nacho cheese.
Yeah, and it's good to have some junk foods that you like every now and then. If you do it when, you're strategic about when you eat it, it's a good thing. Like today I was working on my garage all day long and it was hot out, and so I just wanted to have like some quick sources of energy to replace my carbs that I was burning. And so I got a box of wild berry Pop-Tarts, and so I don't eat Pop-Tarts for breakfast every day, but today when I was working basically in the 100+ degree weather for 10 hours, that seemed like the amount of carbs that I was getting from the Pop-Tarts was a little bit better matched to my energy expenditure compared to if I just woke up and I was gonna roll out of bed and eat 4 Pop-Tarts. I'm then in an energy surplus. But if I'm having a few Pop-Tarts during a 10-hour workday in the heat, I'm burning through those.
Yeah, it hits differently. Like when you eat that stuff, like after all that hard work, all that effort you put in, it's like, yeah, some food just hits differently.
And so if I were working outside every day, and thankfully I don't have to.
Yeah, no crap.
But if I were doing that, I still probably wouldn't eat Pop-Tarts every day. I would eat some healthier foods.
You want to have like an emergency standby, like you pulled out like a holstered gun, like Wild West.
No, I mean Pop-Tarts Pop-Tarts are good, but I can't eat those every day. It's not super healthy. But in certain situations, it goes back to macros. Like, depending on your needs, you can increase or decrease certain things. And if you look into ultra distance runners, so ultra marathons are like marathon, basically longer than a marathon.
Yeah, it's like 36 miles, right, for a marathon.
Marathon is 26.2.
Oh, 26, dang it. I thought, I knew it was a 6.
But ultra marathons are usually like 50 miles plus. So like crazy distance, right? Like super, super difficult. And I really am impressed by those people that do that. But if you look into what they eat, you know, they train on very healthy foods. But during the race, during these like 50 mile plus races, a lot of them will actually, like you were talking about, they'll like stuff, not Pop-Tarts, but they'll stuff like cheeseburgers, slices of pizza, French fries.
Oh, they carry that on their ultra marathon?
They carry that and they eat that during their ultra marathon because just like me eating a Pop-Tart in the garage when I'm working in the garage all day, it's a quick source of energy that the body is able to quickly break down and process and turn into energy. And so for an ultra marathon, that's exactly what you want. You don't want as many of your calories or your energy in your body to go to breaking down the food. You want all of the energy to just be taken out of the food and let your body focus on what it needs to do, which is run the 50-mile race, and then just get some easy energy to keep doing what it needs to do.
I didn't know that. I didn't know they carried the food with them. That's wild. But then again,
Well,
I guess it was kind of like that one video you sent me of those people doing that Tour de France where they get those drinks and stuff. I mean, get it. I know something they were making up the best choices with the wines and stuff.
Oh yeah.
They were getting like almost like a refuel, like a checkpoint thing for their race.
Yeah. Yeah, you should link that video or like show it picture in picture or something, because
that was gonna do that.
that was a really interesting video that I saw as well. So, but that was, I believe, like many decades ago, and I think the comments in that video, they were saying that, you know, there was less, like a little bit less science and like precision and strictness with the diets of athletes back then. But at the same time, like what is still true about athletes today and back then is that athletes require more calories than the average person just going about their day. They need calories. And so you saw back in the Olympics, like I think it was like 2008 or something like that, 2012, they had this news segment on Michael Phelps's diet.
Yeah, it was like,
and they showed like
something like that.
Something like that. Did you see that segment on like, here's what Michael Phelps eats in a day?
I remember he had like he had so many large pizzas or something like that. I
Yeah.
remember it was like 20,000 calories. I know it was like over 10,000 easy.
Yeah, so they showed like, here's what he eats in a day, and they put all the food on a table, and it was like 2 large pizzas and then like 3 pounds of spaghetti.
God
and
dang.
like 12 eggs or something crazy like that. It's like, is that the actual food that he eats? I don't think so.
No,
I think
he's
a little bit healthier than that. But does he eat a bunch of carbs? Heck yes, he does, because he needs to, because he's swimming for 8 hours a day, you know, at a very fast pace. So again, no macro is bad for your body by itself. You know, it depends if you have medical conditions like you know, certain types of diabetes where you really have to be careful of your carbs.
Yeah.
Then yes, certainly some carbs can be bad for you. But in general, if you don't have a medical condition that dictates otherwise, having a balanced diet with balanced macronutrients can be a good thing. And then if you do work out more, you can increase that, you know? Michael Phelps would not be a, like, however many time Olympian he is, best swimmer in the world, if he didn't have carbs. Like, he just could not compete at that level without carbs for what he does. There are some really great athletes that do keto and whatnot. Like some in some sports, it might be more practical than others. For example, ultra marathons, there are some people that do keto for that. And that's because they're actually training their body to burn the fat in their body, which is a little bit more of like a long-term energy source, and they don't have to keep shoving all these carbs in their body because they can just more efficiently burn the fat that's in their own body, and they won't get through all of that in one race. So it can be helpful in some situations, but for most like dynamic sports, like fast, intense, short burst type sports and whatnot, carbs are very important. And most Olympic athletes eat a bunch of carbs. So carbs are not terrible. They're not the enemy. It's all about balancing what you eat.
It's not the devil?
Carbs are not bad, and it's
kind of like
unfortunate.
Waterboy, remember? Is this like, electricity is the devil? I invented electricity.
Oh, Waterboy. I remember that
Carbs
movie.
are the devil. I can imagine like, Baba Boucher, carbs are the devil.
Yeah. And so do you remember in, when we were growing up in the 90s, do you remember that they
I was
had...
born in the 80s, man. I don't know the 90s.
Oh, you were 80s, really?
No, I wasn't.
Okay. I'm like, what? But they had kind of like a big time in the 80s when Atkins was getting more popular, like 80s and 90s, when they were saying like, fat. Well, Atkins was more like embracing fat, but there was also like another diet period where people were saying fat was bad, and so during that period, unfortunately, they said like, don't eat any fat. Fat is bad for you. Fat turns into fat, which is just not true biologically. Like the food that you eat are providing calories, no matter what food. And if you eat excess calories, then that gets turned into fat. But eating fat doesn't add fat to your body. It doesn't work that way. But during this period, that's kind of like what people were thinking was like, if you eat fat, you'll be unhealthy and you'll become fat. And so what did they do instead? They picked the other macronutrient that was more calorie dense than fat, which was carbs. And so they're like, yeah, eat a bunch of carbs instead of fat. And guess what happened? No surprise. People got fat. Like, because if you're going to eat an egg, which I think is like maybe like roughly half proteins and fats, or like predominantly proteins and fats, no carbs at least, you're going to feel pretty full because both the protein and the fat are filling you up, and they're both doing their thing from a macronutrient perspective, fueling your body. But if you replace that one egg with a bagel, you're going to have to eat like a whole bagel, like double the size of food, certainly double the triple, quadruple the calories to get the same level of feeling full. So fats I don't think should be cut out from your diet entirely.
Oh, no, yeah, not at all.
And that's what happened during that period, because everyone was like, yeah, fats are bad. Fats turn into fat, so let's all eat carbs instead.
No, you gotta have the fats.
Yeah, and so that whole push to eliminate fat was kind of, I think, the reason that our diets are so carb heavy right now, because they started to make a lot of different foods and really push carbs being, if you look at the My Diet plate, or like, different recommendations for how much of each macro you should have, it's usually like overwhelmingly carbs. Carbs are like the biggest slice of that pie, right? The biggest part of that plate. And I think that came from people's, previous push to get rid of fat. And I don't think fat in itself is actually a bad thing. You just need to avoid the bad fats and have a balanced diet overall.
Well, it probably didn't help with the oil stuff too, though, because like back in like when McDonald's was first a restaurant, well, when they first started around the 70s or whatever, they were using animal fat to fry their food.
Oh,
and
yeah.
There was a doctor who done this huge push because he was claiming that there was more heart attacks happening with the animal fats. And so then, some heart doctor back in the 70s or 80s, but basically he was like saying, yeah, you don't want to use animal fat because it's going to give you more likely to give you a heart attack. So then there was a push for vegetable fats, and more, and it's like, I can't remember, it's like palm or something, or canola, but went to vegetable oil, and vegetable oil is supposedly now, like with the research on it, is supposedly less healthy because of the smoke point on it. and how it reacts when it gets, like, how your body reacts when it's like, I gotta look it up. It was just really interesting, because, like...
I didn't know that. Wow.
Yeah, there's a lot of these fast food places, these ones that when they were first forming, they used animal fats. And then there was a push for vegetable fats. Now most of these fried places, they're probably going to be using vegetable fats. Because what you fry it with is also kind of important too, because we're talking about putting the oil inside your chicken and stuff, but the type of oil, kind of like how you're saying the whole putting it in a container and stuff.
Yeah.
It's like where it's like you don't want a plastic that's going to leach into your food. Now the oil, it's like you're not going to fry your, stuff in some kind of like crappy oil, I guess is the best way of putting it.
Yeah.
But that's why I'm trying to push more for using animal fats.
Miles is not a fan of animal fat.
No, he's not. That's why I got the duck fat and the beef lard. That's why with that brisket that I was making, I saved the fat that I trimmed, and then I'm gonna boil it, basically get some tallow from it.
That's a good point. Miles, what do you think about, nutrition, foods? Are there certain foods you think are good to eat or you don't like to eat?
Listen, man, everything I eat is fried. Everything I eat comes from a restaurant.
Everything?
Just about.
Dang, like what do you usually eat?
Here for a good time, not a long one, you know what I'm saying?
What?
Restaurants are definitely tasty, but that's expensive, bro. That's the reason I'm
You're
at
looking
that.
at minimum like $10 a meal.
Oh yeah,
If you're having that,
I never said I was the smartest man.
you got good taste though. Sounds like it. What are your favorite restaurants to go to?
Number one, Chick-fil-A.
Yeah, what do you like
Yeah.
at Chick-fil-A?
The spicy chicken sandwich. It's just
That's a
so good.
one.
Dang.
McDonald's is a spicy chicken sandwich is pretty good too.
You brought up an interesting point, Miles. Like, why do you eat the chicken sandwich? Is it just taste, or do you feel like it's a healthier choice than, say, a burger?
Oh no, it's not for health. It's strictly flavor.
Okay.
That's the same way I do it. Is just like when I go fast food, I don't do it for health. I do it for taste.
Yeah. Well, that's pretty reasonable then, if you ask me. But I feel like a lot of the people that go to restaurants like Chick-fil-A, they go there because like a part of them thinks it's healthier to eat a fried chicken sandwich than a burger.
Oh
But
no,
if
I just
you're-
can't cook.
And maybe it's like not wanting to cook either or things like that. But I think that's where it's tricky these days is these restaurants, they kind of make themselves look healthy when, it might not be actually healthy. And so if you were to ask me, like, what's healthier, I would say like an In-N-Out burger because it's not going to be fried in oil and it's got pretty much like fresh ingredients and more vegetables are loaded up on that thing than the Chick-fil-A sandwich. So just look at what's in the food and judge it based on that in terms of how healthy it is. That's what I'd say.
So Chick-fil-A uses MSG in their cooking, which I didn't know that until somewhat recently. But on the other front, though, I tried it because I found out what oil they use. So they use peanut oil to fry their food. So,
Okay. In-N-Out uses that for their fries, I believe.
Peanut oil is pretty good. I like the taste of it. It definitely gives it a pretty distinct flavor that I like over like, just vegetable fat or something like that.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, Chick-fil-A is tasty. I just know whenever I drive by there, they have like a line wrapped around the building twice.
Same. Every
Always.
store. I don't
Like-
know why it is. Chick-fil-A is like busier than all heck.
Well, what
They
I
always
think,
get you out quickly though.
True.
Yeah.
True.
like they're friendly. They provide good food. I think part of it though is like people think fried chicken is somehow a healthier option than other fast food because it's chicken, And so again, it's just like that's not how it works. Like it's based on what's in the food, not what you add in or take out. It's based on what the majority of the food is. And if the majority of the food is fried bread crust with a bunch of oil in it, like that's not going to be a healthy food at the end of the day,
No, yeah, not at all. Because it's like you have that oil, and that oil's not like sugar. It's not like water. It's
Right.
It has all that oil inside that can go in your arteries, and then you add that to the food. It's just like I don't know, it'd be like one of those like fun like experiments. Will spinach or lettuce be healthy if you fry it? Well, you're frying it because you're adding all that oil to it, so probably not.
Yeah, I
mean,
always...
Is it better than like frying a fat piece of bread? Yeah. But
right?
you're still frying it.
I always kind of giggle a little bit when I see like different fried vegetables, and you see that at like a lot of places around where I live, like fried okra,
fried pickles,
I've seen fried corn, yeah, fried pickles, and it's like that pizza thing you were talking about earlier. Like, it's like, okay, there's my serving of vegetables, but is it really? Is it really what they had in mind when they recommended
probably not
4 servings of vegetables a day? No, not at all.
It has all the food table elements, you know. It has your meats, it has your vegetables, it has your fruits.
Yeah, I suppose so.
It has your grains.
It has your grains, yeah.
It has like the whole food pyramid, man. I couldn't believe that a whole vegetable thing happened. But that kind of like that whole Morgan Spurlock thing when he made his own fast food place, where he would put grill marks on the chicken, like it was still fried or something, but he still put grill marks on it to make it look healthier.
Well, like, what was interesting about that movie, I believe you're talking about, like, Super Size Me 2, Holy Chicken, was that his whole premise was he was going to do all the things that fast food companies do, and just they don't tell you about, but he was going to tell people about it. His restaurant had, like, all the crazy things they do to the food put up as posters on the wall. And so they're doing that. When you go buy a grilled chicken sandwich from, name a fast food place, a lot of the time they're putting that food coloring on it to make it look like it's grilled, and there's no way it's grilled.
Oh, that's like the fish in restaurants, or stores where it's like they make it look like inject some pink coloring into it.
Oh man, yeah.
Sure.
Right? So there's a lot of stuff that restaurants do, and they're not doing it because it's going to make the food healthier. They're doing it because, 1, it's going to taste better, and 2, they're going to make you think it's healthier. So you feel better about eating it all the time. And that's kind of manipulative and sneaky, and I don't like that.
Well, another thing, that's like something else that's kind of interesting. It kind of goes with the whole chicken thing. So FDA regulations, they have to like not put antibiotics inside the chicken and stuff. But I guess the point I'm bringing up this is like, so if you go to the grocery store and you try and buy chicken, they'll advertise no antibiotics. Like it's like this huge thing, like they're doing you a service, when really it's just a regulation they have to abide by anyways.
Yeah, antibiotics I don't know enough about to give like a smart opinion on. I think the idea of antibiotics is good, because what you're doing is you're basically preventing other diseases from entering the food supply. But I know a big issue with antibiotics overall, even for people, is that when you use them in excess, the bacteria you're trying to kill become more resistant, and they no longer work as well.
Well, I guess my point bringing it up is not against the antibiotics per se, because I know some also advertise no growth hormone. And and I guess my point bringing it up is that they're almost advertising like the bare minimum. Like bare minimum, the FDA requires them to have the no growth hormones or the antibiotics and stuff. And it's just like, then they put it on like an advertising thing. It'd almost be like, kind of like with the FDA, when it comes to the packaged foods you get, there's so many parts per million of certain things that, like roach, and like contaminants. There's like parts per million that is allowable. So that would be like, you get a can of SpaghettiOs or a bag of like, you get some cereal and Captain Crunch, and it says like, now 50% less rat parts or 2% less rat parts or something like that. It'd be like, it's like almost like advertising the bare minimum of what they have to do in order to sell it on the market. Well, that's kind of like also too, I'm starting to notice it more now because of California, but some of these products too will say like, oh, this one has like red dye X, like some 35 or something like that. Then I also see stuff like, oh, like the California like regulations as far as like disclosures on what's in the food.
Yeah, when those first started to become a thing, when California was passing a bunch of those laws, like I know a lot of people were like making fun of it essentially and be like, oh man, everything causes cancer, you can't buy anything. California is like freaking out. But I think it's a good thing what they're doing at the end of the day, because it doesn't hurt to provide people information that this thing you're buying has chemicals in it that have been shown to be linked to cancer. It just doesn't hurt, and like let the person choose if they want to buy that or not.
Yeah.
But on the
Exactly.
flip side, if you don't know it, you could be exposing yourself and you wouldn't want to. So when I was painting my garage, I learned recently that different paints give off different chemicals that can be more hazardous to your health and potentially cause cancer. And so I didn't even know that at first. And so now that I knew it, I figured out, yeah, I'd rather buy a paint that has less of those. They're called VOCs, basically like volatile organic compounds.
Yeah.
And because I'm going to be painting in the garage for several days at a time.
Do you leave the door
and I'm
closed
gonna
or
be-
open?
No, I left it open, and that's like what they recommend. But I just don't want to take that risk if I don't have to. The paint is going to look the same. It's really not that different to me. So I'd rather choose the healthier alternative. And so for food, where it's something you're eating every day, multiple times a day, why are we not getting these disclaimers about what's in the food and what illnesses that can cause or conditions that can cause, you know?
No, I totally agree, because with some of that, it has to be disclosed because you got to know what's in it. Because it'll be like, well, I mean, because I know right now it's just they do have the ingredients on it, but there's something that could be hazardous from it. I'd like to know. I mean, crap. I mean, you have it with drugs. I mean, there's that where basically you know what's the likelihood. Well, not likelihood, I guess, but you know that there's a risk of it causing certain health effects. So to me, the way I look at it, that's not too much different than when you take drugs. Like the prescription drugs where basically it says like, you know, this my likelihood of seizures or heart attack and all this stuff. But it's like, why not the same with food? Like this could cause
Yeah.
dizziness. This cause,
Yeah.
and then also it's on alcohol too. Like do not drink or drive. You know, drink responsibly and all this stuff. And like they have disclosures for pregnancy and stuff like that on there.
Yeah,
And it's like I
exactly.
don't see any difference with that than just like a regular, like whether it be a candy bar or something like that. If you have a candy bar that can give you cancer, well, crap. I want to know if this candy bar can give me cancer. I want to know if it's worth it. I just like if I want to know if it can do this bad thing.
So the thing about cancer, I'm not a doctor. I don't know about cancer from like a research level, but as a consumer, like being exposed to these different things in the news and seeing these different warnings, my take on it is that there's just a bunch of stuff that can cause cancer, you know?
Yeah,
And
carcinogens.
so, right, carcinogens are in many different situations and many different products. And so as a consumer, like I just want to limit my exposure when it's practical and when it's possible. So it goes back to being informed. I'd rather be informed and know about these potential issues and then choose what's worth it, what's not worth it. Instead of just being like, yeah, I'm going to absorb all the carcinogens. I'm going to just like throw caution to the wind. You know, you just got to be a little bit smarter than that.
Well, that's kind of the candle stuff, like those scented candles. I
Yeah.
don't know if you use those, but that's something you might want to look into too, because of it being scented and stuff.
Yeah.
And then people are burning it inside their houses.
Oh, I didn't know about that. Yeah.
Yeah, because it's like you're burning that oil, or that, because they use those different chemicals to give it that scent. And it's like
Yeah.
you're burning that, like you have people that are burning that crap in their homes.
Right, right. Yeah, and again, I think cancer, just like nutrition, it's a complex subject. There are many different variables to consider, but it's only going to be helpful to be informed about what is known to be linked to cancer and allow you to choose what you want to do, you know?
Even if it's like not all that's linked to cancer, just at least know what the hell you're putting into your body to know
Yeah.
like what's going to be in it, because it's kind of like the gluten and peanuts and all that other stuff. I mean, people don't bat an eye with the peanuts or that stuff because people have allergies to that, so it's important to know what's in it so that
Right.
they don't have that allergic reaction, or at least they'll know the risk if they do try to eat it.
Right, right. Yeah. Yeah, it's a good point.
It's like knowledge
So
is
I
power with
definitely-
this. It's like if they can If they could put a big fancy logo of like Captain Crunch on the box, I think they'll have enough room to put like, this might cause XY health effect, or this was made with this ingredient that people might be allergic to.
And I think what it comes down to, like to look at it at a higher level, is that a lot of the unhealthy foods are like economically more viable right now for businesses because they're more shelf stable, they're cheaper ingredients, they're easier to produce, and so they don't really want to say those bad things about them because at the end of the day, a lot of businesses want to sell that product. They don't want to sell healthy food that takes longer to produce and is more expensive to make.
Well, then also
that's the problem, you know.
Throw out the stock every like 2 hours.
Yeah.
Not have to worry about throwing out like something that I guess they'd like to know they can keep it there for almost like a couple more weeks than just a couple of days.
Mm-hmm. And I think that's something that, as a society, we can do better. I think we can make healthier food. We can provide healthier options. Even if we can't do that overnight, we can at least label what's in the current options better to know what you're choosing. And I think that would cause a lot of people to choose better foods already, you know?
Yeah, but then it has to be labeled on it.
Right.
Kind of makes me think of ramen. Like, I love ramen noodles, and I always thought ramen pretty much lasted forever, like packaged ramen. And I found out recently, not really. Like, almost every package of ramen noodles I ever get, like, I'll look at the label, and it'll be like, I mean, granted, it's still a long while, but they'll say, like, 4 months will be, like, and then it'll expire. And I'm like,
wow.
Dang, I was like, I thought ramen noodles pretty much were, like, one of those foods you can basically put in a time capsule for 200 years and it'd still be edible. Well, at least not that crazy, but at least for a long period of time.
Yeah.
Not 4 months.
Yeah. It's interesting to think about preserved food like that. I think when it was first invented, ramen, like instant ramen, was actually like a very positive thing for society because it allowed a lot of people to have like cheap, abundant food that otherwise wouldn't have food. They would be kind of like food scarce in their household. And so that's a really good thing. Like, it helped a lot of people to have food. But now we have this problem in modern day society where it's no longer hard to get food. Like, you can get food. The challenge is getting healthy food at a reasonable price.
Well, it's like the bread. Okay, well, I guess a good example is that sourdough bread I get from Target. It's like, yeah, $3.29 a loaf or something like that. And,
right.
But I could get the regular white bread from Walmart that's going to last like a week and a half or something like that, like a week. Like, because, like I said, the sourdough bread, that's like 3 days, and I got to, like, eat that thing, like, max. But then the bread from Walmart, it's like a week later I can eat that. And it's like, and I'm getting it for like $1. I mean, like $1.50.
Yeah, but it's kind of like pay now or pay later, you know.
Yo,
if you're going to choose the $1 meal every day for 20 years. I mean, I don't want to say it's a choice because for some people it's not, unfortunately, and that's just what they can afford.
Get what they can get.
And so I'm not one to be like on my high horse and be like, why are you eating white bread? If that's like what you can afford and that's what's around, then eat what you can, you know. And I have no bad feelings about that. People should be able to eat food and not feel guilty about what they're able to afford. But I also wish they could have better options. And there are a bunch of people in America that they really only have access to like convenience stores and things like that.
Food deserts.
Food deserts, yeah. And that's the bigger issue, is that as a society, we're not providing healthier options for people in general. And I wish we were, because I'm sure they would choose it. I'm sure there are lots of people that are just like, this is all I have money for, but I would like to eat healthier food, you know?
Yeah, that's just insane to think about. I kind of forgot about the whole food desert thing. It's like, I remember there was one video I was seeing, I forgot where it was at. It was some city somewhere, and I forgot how far they said the nearest grocery store was, but it was like think like 15 miles. And then it was like one of those things that's like, that doesn't sound too bad, but if you don't have a car, that's going to make it a little bit more difficult to get the groceries. But yeah, like I said, so then it's like the whole food desert thing. It's just like I said, they were talking, like they said the nearest place to them, like where they can get the food or stuff like that, was like, was like this local convenience store. And then you look at the options they had, it's like, they had nothing. It was just, I mean, granted, it's a convenience store. I get it. I totally get it. They're not supposed to have like a whole like chicken breast there, but it was like one of those things like you don't really have that many choices, and it's gonna be all this like super preserved food that's high sodium and all this other stuff, and it's like,
yeah, it's unfortunate.
Like if you don't have access to that, like I guess the best way of picking it is, or saying is having access to like getting chicken breast and all this other stuff, and you can only get ramen. It's like, yeah, your diet's not going to be too good if you can only get that junk food, basically.
Yeah, so to sum it up about food, I don't think that any specific macronutrient is bad. It's about moderation. And foods these days, when you walk into the supermarket, a lot of what you see is processed in a way where they're taking out the good parts about it and they're only leaving in the bad parts. So if you can, the best advice I've heard about a supermarket is like try to avoid everything in the middle, because that's like all the shelf stable processed stuff, or just be very, selective about that stuff. And then try to shop on the outsides, which is where, like the meat and the dairy and the vegetables and fruits and the whole foods essentially are. And not everyone will have access to the same types of supermarkets or financial resources to buy healthy food, because unfortunately it's more expensive. And so I think overall we need to do, as a society, we need to make that food more abundant and more available.
I think another good policy is like if you can't pronounce it, it's probably something you shouldn't put in your body.
Yeah, I agree with that.
It's exactly what you should put in your body.
I mean,
Anything
like
you can't pronounce?
For food, there's on the whole, like a lot of preservatives and chemicals are like that. But like medicines and things like that, like,
Yeah,
food,
but food, I shouldn't have like, I mean, I guess if you have like bread, it shouldn't have like 30 other different ingredients, unless it's some type of like, I don't know, fancy bread or something like that. I just don't. Yeah, like if you can't pronounce the name of the crazy ingredient, it's probably something you shouldn't be throwing in the body.
Yeah, that's a good rule of thumb for sure for looking at ingredients on food. But you just gotta do your best as a consumer and look for the healthier options. The truth is out there as far as what's in all this processed food.
Where am I going?
Like an X-Files thing right there.
The truth is out there. It's up to you to find the food that you consume. PSA from the Totally Productive Podcast. But anyways, back to the net. I think now on a more random side note, it's a lot more lighthearted. What's the best fried chicken? And well, not fried chicken, but like the chicken sandwich. Like, like Chick-fil-A, you got now all the Popeyes, KFC.
Oh my god.
Well, obviously Chick-fil-A, McDonald's, even Whataburger has one. I think Wendy's has a
Whataburger has fried. Oh, are you talking sandwiches?
chicken sandwich, yeah.
Okay, yeah. To be totally honest, I'm not a big fan of fried chicken. It's just everywhere here in Texas. It's all right. Like, don't get me wrong, but it's not like my favorite food or anything. And so I would say, like, I'm probably not the best resource to go to on fried chicken. But I like fried chicken that's not like where you don't taste mainly the oil. You should taste mainly the chicken. Then it should be light, a little bit fluffy, breaded, got a crunch to it. So we have this place nearby us called Golden Chick, and that's pretty good. I've also had Raising Cane's, and that's pretty good too. But to me, like, honestly, fried chicken, it all tastes pretty similar. And so I don't get why we have like 5 billion fried chicken restaurants.
You gotta have variety,
But there, I guess what I should clarify is I don't get why some people are like staunchly opposed to or supporting these specific fried chicken restaurants. In terms of taste, like there's no fried chicken standout restaurant for me. And none that are like terrible, because they all just taste pretty similar to me.
For me, I guess like Chick-fil-A, I think has one of the better ones. Popeyes has a pretty good chicken sandwich, and then I would put like McDonald's and Whataburger next. So like Chick-fil-A at the top, or possibly contender with Popeyes. But
Yeah.
for chicken sandwiches, I'm not saying getting the fried chicken, but just the chicken sandwiches.
I guess like the one reason I might choose another fried chicken place over another in terms of like the food itself would be like the quality of chicken. And so they have like rib meat. Like if you get chicken nuggets, I don't know if you're even going to count that as fried chicken or not.
Well,
But
I mean,
chicken
if it's like the
nuggets,
McDonald's where they make into a paste, like a white paste, I wouldn't count it.
yeah, like that type of deal. But there's a lot of other like chicken products, especially chicken sandwiches that basically use the same stuff, the same cuts of meat as chicken nuggets. And so I feel like that's not as tasty and not as healthy as like an actual whole piece of chicken, like a chicken breast or something like that. So I would choose like the chicken where I can actually tell this is a piece of chicken over chicken that's been mashed up and kind of ground up a lot.
Blended chicken.
Exactly. I don't want my chicken blended. Not for me.
You want it blended, not stirred?
Yeah, none of the above, actually. Do you know how in Elf, where he's talking about the food groups, and for him, the food groups are like, it's like syrup, candy, sugar, and like more syrup or something like
I'm
that?
saying Alf?
Yeah.
Yeah, in Elf, in that movie.
Wait, Alf, like the little Muppet?
Elf. Elf.
I should enunciate Elf. Elf.
Oh, who? Oh my God! One with Will Ferrell.
Yep, yeah,
Okay.
the
Nah, Johnny Depp.
I was about to say Colin Farrell, but I knew that'd be wrong.
Yeah. So like earlier I was saying like I don't think there's any bad macronutrients, which is true, but like sugar is kind of like the one exception that I would say, because technically sugary foods would fall under carbs as the macro, but it's a very simple carbohydrate, and it very easily turns into excess energy and excess fat in your body, and it spikes your blood insulin, your blood sugar level, which causes many other problems. So the one thing that I would say like people should really try to avoid, and honestly never eat, would be candy. Like candy is just pure sugar mostly. It's like above 70% sugar for most candies. And it has no redeeming quality from a nutritional standpoint, at least none that I can think of. So I would say just try to avoid candy at all.
So Skittles.
Honestly, like, I don't know if there's anyone listening that like loves Skittles or works for like the Skittles company, but like Skittles are not good for you, and it's just
Well, not only that,
like-
then they have the whole die number 99 or whatever.
yeah. And I think it's kind of unfortunate actually that kids are like brought up on candy, and it becomes something that it's like, oh, I'm gonna have fun, I'm gonna eat candy. Because candy is just like one of the worst things you can eat. It's just going to spike your blood sugar, which can cause so many other problems. It's going to turn into fat. It's going to rot your teeth. Like everything your parents told you about not eating too much candy, it's true. There's just no nutritional
Then you find
benefit
razors
from
in
eating
your
candy.
candy too, so you got to worry about that.
Well, that is honestly pretty scary to think about, but so is candy when you think about it. Like don't eat candy. That's my advice. Very rarely. Like when you go to the movie theaters, maybe, but try not to eat it.
That's like why I get like every once in a while I'll get Airheads. Like
Yeah.
I'll be something. But there for a minute though, I used to be a fiend with the dark chocolate M&Ms. Like I'd eat the chocolate M&Ms, then they rolled out dark chocolate M&Ms.
Yeah.
And I just grew addicted to that. Then Whole Foods, they had these baker where you can buy the chocolate chips that you would throw in like cookies or something like that. And
Oh,
they
wow.
had a dark chocolate chip one. I was like, oh my god. And I was like
Yeah.
so glad they had that because that was such a good taste.
Yeah.
Not healthy though because they have all the sugar, but it was like that was a good.
Yeah. Like things like dark chocolate, they can be healthy, but on the whole, candy, like any candy you get from the checkout of any like retail store or convenience store, it's not good for you.
It reminds me when I was working at Smoothie King. There was this one smoothie that we made. It was some type of peanut butter concoction, and it was one of their most sweet drinks that they had. And if you threw a scoop of chocolate of peanut butter in it, it made it taste so good. But the thing was it was over 1,000 calories though. Once you added that peanut butter scoop in there, but it was so tasty. So, not that I was never really successful in doing this, but we were always told to upsell people on drinks. But anyways, I'd tell them oh, what you should do is you should get this drink and throw a scoop of peanut butter. It's extra, but it's so good. And it's no one took the bite, but it was just I didn't feel too bad when I was suggesting that.
Yeah. So there's different types of fats. I think we mentioned that earlier. There's trans fat, saturated fat, and then there's the good fat, monosaturated or unsaturated, yeah. And then there's the good fats like omega-3 fatty acids, and different types of fats that are found in healthy foods. And so nuts can be a good source of fats. I believe the processed peanut butters tend to have more of the saturated fat, which is less healthy. But I think what it comes down to is try to get all your macros from whole foods, because then it's going to be a lot of the time the healthier version or a balanced amount of ingredients. Versus if you get processed foods, they're just going to take out all the good stuff and leave in the unhealthy stuff.
You just made me think about the whole peanut butter thing. Now when I'm planning to think about it now, it's this made me want to make some puppy chow or Muddy Buddies. It's that stuff is so good.
What's that?
Muddy Buddies or puppy chow? Oh my god, dude, you gotta have it. It's okay, so you take Chex cereal, and basically, so first you get a bowl, and you put chocolate and peanut butter in it, and butter, and you mix them. Yeah, and you heat them up. So then you try to whip them up together, be smooth, and then what you do is you get Chex cereal in another bowl, and you pour that basically liquid
sugar.
Yeah, it's basically liquid sugar. Perfect example. That is literally what it is. It's basically liquid sugar. Because it's peanut butter, chocolate chips, and butter mixed together to basically liquid. Pour it on the Chex cereal. And then what you do is you take powdered sugar and then and then you kind of powder that on that chocolate concoction, cereal.
Yeah.
And it's called Muddy Buddies, but I calling it puppy chow because people are why?
Dude,
what's
I'm
puppy
not
chow?
sure.
The puppy chow name is a lot more fun to say.
Because it's getting close to my bedtime, and that's the other key to success, healthy living, is sleeping. Sleeping, drinking water, and eating well. There you go.